CAA. We know our front offices affiliated ties. You know we affiliated. You know we CAA over here. What side? You know we circling the block. And we know you Klutch over there. We know where we at. You ain't got no love for CAA and Death Row. You know, Teflon Tibbs and Tibbs Mafia. You ain't got no love for us. Let it be known. I laughed. I had to laugh because it's comical. And I'm talking about the sun setting on LeBron James's era in this league. And what he's doing is strategic. The man is a genius. He does have genius level talents in terms of his image and controlling his narrative. Check out what LeBron James is doing. Don't let it go over your head, folks. He's knowing that he no longer, his ability to determine personnel matter and moves. That's dwindling as his career begins to set. He's carrying out his career so that he can say he played at the same time as his son. He's stretching this thing out. But in terms of his influence to impact the game and put a team on his shoulders and lead them to a championship, that's over. Those days are over. But the man is slowly transitioning to influence. And we all know Rich Paul is the figurehead of Klutch Sports. And LeBron James has been cerebral behind it all of these years. In plain sight in front of the commissioner, making moves, leading people over here, having back behind the scenes conversations. Your best friend is running the most powerful sports agency in the sport. And nobody could do nothing because intellectually he outlasted everybody in the NBA, all of the people that make decisions by creating a sports agency in his own sport. Masterful. But the one thing that can disrupt and interrupt any of your plans with your sports agency is another sports agency that steps into the arena. How many of you work out? How many of you work out and you're feeling good about your progress? You know what I mean? Your traps are trapping. And you know you're sitting and you're feeling yourself because you got you a little swole with it. And somebody else walks in the gym and they're bigger than you are. And you know us guys, we're gonna size each other up. You know, I could fold him, I could take him out. But there's that one dude that'll walk in the gym and his traps are trapping and the shoulders are shouldering. And he walks just closely by you to make sure you know that you're smaller than he is. And that's when you do this. You set it on him. But I say this, CAA is that new dude that just walked into the room. And LeBron and Klutch is just like, we got this players, but I see that over here, the player agent that we used to be cool with now resigned his position and he took on a position with a particular organization. And that mirrors what LeBron did because LeBron clearly started Klutch Sports. And then he tried to at least in public, disassociate himself from that agency and say that's what they're doing. It's a conflict of interest if I'm a part of that in terms of leadership, so I'm separating. But Leon Rose basically did the same thing. He was the head of CAA until he relinquished his responsibilities to take on the role with the New York Knicks. But those ties are still there. And that's when LeBron senses a threat. That's when Klutch Sports senses a threat. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper into my conspiracy theory, it's beyond that. It started earlier than that. It started with LeBron's botched decision when he decided he wanted to make a circus out of making his announcement to go from Cleveland to Miami. And then he wanted to loop New York in and try to tease them, so he held that press conference right there in Connecticut, New York's backyard. And in his mind, he thought dramatically, oh, this is going to turn out like a fairy tale. I'm going to have people at the edge of their seat. We're going to publicize this and broadcast this all over the news networks. Everybody's going to be locked in and close to the screen. And they're thinking that I'm going to New York, but I'm not. I'm going to do the okie doke, and I'm going to say I'm going to Miami. And they're going to celebrate me for that. And what he didn't realize was in that moment, he would become the biggest villain. First and foremost, that people who love basketball saw what you was doing. They saw that you had all Knicks fans on bated breath by being in their backyard to make this announcement, leading them to believe that it may be New York. They saw, look, people outside of New York, people in Utah was just like, yo, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful. And when you thought you was going to come out wearing the white hat, you were forced to wear the black hat. Because people haven't let you live that down ever since. That's why y'all salty. I'm here to tell you that your blame is misplaced. We ain't doing transference here. Don't put that on us. You put that on yourself. And from that moment, every move you tried to make was to try to discredit the New York Knicks, not only their organization, their franchise, their fan base. And you tried to do it under the guise of, I don't like how they treated Melo. Oh, Phil Jackson called my crew posse or whatever. I don't like that. That has some type of racist connotation to it. Oh, I don't like what Dylan did to Uncle Oak. Everything. You look for a reason to point the finger and to diminish anything associated with one of the historic franchises in the goddamn NBA. You've been able to successfully do that for 20 years. And people bought into that and believed that because the majority of the players in the league, they were your minions. They were part of your kingdom. You didn't compete with them, you befriended them. So then they let out their guard and then you dominated them on the court. Jeff Van Gundy tried to warn us about that. Jeff Van Gundy said, I don't like when Michael Jordan tries to buddy up with the players. And then that lessens the competitive edge. And he smiles and thinks you're his friend. And Michael Jordan got mad at him because he was just like, that ain't even what I'm doing. What you thinking? Jeff Van Gundy knew what the hell he was talking about. And LeBron James is a student of the game. He studied that and he successfully did it with a whole generation of NBA players who still to that man's face tell him, oh, that's my favorite player. To that man's face calls him the GOAT. Now, you have the New York Knicks making traction. The NBA knows they're better off when the New York Knicks are good. But everybody else in the NBA, all the other teams, all of those superstars who forever sidestepped New York because King James sidestepped New York, who dismantled and discredited the reputation and the name, who talked about the stench that was on the Garden, who had no problem riding a subway, thinking they can get away with that in New York. Bottle flipping on Madison Square Garden's floor while the game was still in progress. Putting more wood on the fire to stoke the flames of making New York one of the biggest jokes in NBA history and feeding that to the media so that the media had a permission slip to shit on New York Knicks fans. Them days are over. Them days are over. Because what Rich Paul and Klutch Sports and behind that veil, LeBron James sees, they sees not only is the New York Knicks in a position where they've hired sound leadership, forward-thinking leadership. They hired the cap guy to help you put together those teams in Cleveland. They got Worldwide West on their side, that man who's the master of relationships on and off the court. They got Leon Rose, who is skilled not only as an attorney, so he pays attention to detail, but he's developed relationships around the league with people in front offices and players. Everything that you've got, we are the Bizarro and Bizarro World to your Superman, but we're the kryptonite to your Batman.
Kryptonite to your Batman.
We're the kryptonite to your Superman. You know what the hell I meant? We are the kryptonite. Our front office got that, and it's coming together at the right time because all of the chips are starting to fall the right way for the New York Knicks. Trust me when I tell you this. That Rich Paul thing is a smokescreen. It's a last-ditch effort to try to keep the New York Knicks down, to try to put a foot on the hip of the New York Knicks fans so they don't stand up to that organization, so that they don't stand up erect and once again reclaim one of their rightful spot in this league. It's one of the top teams in this league. It's a last-ditch effort. And if Zach LaVine is a smart man, he'd make his own decision about whether or not he want to join the team. You see what's over there, and you see what you got in Chicago. But the New York Knicks are on the rise. And the most powerful entity over the last 20 years, they recognize it.
Stop the record. And rewind that.
But the New York Knicks are on the rise. And the most powerful entity over the last 20 years, they recognize it. And Rich Paul's statement that he released about the New York Knicks and not having interest, that's a testimony that the New York Knicks are on the right path and they're doing the right thing. Pay attention, Knicks fans. Pay attention. The Knicks are one player away from switching the conversation from this retirement tour to the league is in good hands. Adam Silver's on a star search right now. Not only individually, but who's going to be that next team that transcends? Our current NBA champion are the Denver Nuggets. They can't let that happen. The Denver Nuggets are your champion. Shout out to the Denver Nuggets. I know I'm being disrespectful. Shout out to y'all. The Denver Nuggets are your champion. So that's all I got to say.